Good morning, my name is Tania Velasquez, and my research is the cartoon as a didactic strategy to develop the reading comprehension in the teaching of English as a foreign language in Cycle 4 of a secondary school for adults. And this research aims to show the research progress in relation to the development and the reading comprehension through the implementation of comics as a didactic strategy to improve the reading comprehension in the teaching English as a foreign language for students of Cycle 4. We need to take into account that this cycle is validating the 8th and 9th grade of secondary school. In the case of Institución Educativa Compartir, NISH. In the statement of the problem, we have that the strategy by teachers in the practices are not adequate because the strategies that are used not take into account the ages or interests of adult students. They only use pedagogical strategies that are not meaningful for students. In the case of curriculum, it's the same. It's not suitable for students' education because it's not meaningful for students, not thought for students. In the case of reading of text, is implemented more than the cartoon as a didactic strategy and in the reading comprehension exercise, because in this type of activities, students or teachers only implement reading texts that are based on real situations and no take into account interest of adults or students in this case. Research questions are: in what way can reading comprehension be developed through the use of comics in the teaching of English as a foreign language in students of Cycle 4, night shift of Institución Educativa Compartir, and what strategies are used to be developed reading comprehension in the teaching of English as a foreign language in students of Cycle 4, night shift in Institución Educativa Compartir. In the case of objectives, we have the general objectives and specific objectives. This is to develop reading comprehension in students of Cycle 4 from the use of comics as a didactic strategies for teaching English as a foreign language. Specific objectives are: 1. Improve the process of reading comprehension in students from the use of comics as a didactic strategy in the teaching of English as a foreign language. 2. Design 6 worksheets which implement the use of comics as a didactic strategy to strengthen reading comprehension processes in adult students. 3. Apply the implemented worksheets and analyze the results, taking into account the staged categories in relation to reading comprehension. The theoretical framework in this study has 4 concepts that are so important, that are teaching a foreign language, English, didactic strategy, reading comprehension, and andragogy. I'm not going to explain it deeply because I explain this more carefully in a video that I showed the before semester. If you want to know more about the theoretical framework, go and see it. In the literature review, it's the same. In that video, I show you deeply the documents that I found about the cartoon in the case of reading comprehension, or in the case of use it in the education of children or adolescents, because in the case of adults education, the cartoon or the comic haven't been implemented as a didactic strategy, only as a entertaining method. In the case of research methodology, we have the context. The context is in the Institución Educativa Compartir, located in Soacha Compartir. The participants are cycle 4th graders and English teacher in night shift. It's important to mention that in this cycle or in this classroom, the students have different type of levels in English. In the case of younger students that are approximately in 16, 20s years, they get more easily and they have more skills about at the moment to acquire English. Yes, and they have more abilities in the English. But in the case of older students, they have a so slow level of English. Is so difficult for them get new vocabulary, grammar, and abilities as listening, speaking skills, different type of abilities in English is so difficult for them population. The case of investigative paradigm is qualitative, that want to know about this phenomenon, that is the difficulties in the reading comprehension of English. The research design is the action research, research, because I'm going to implement a pedagogical intervention that I'm going to explain. In this case, it implies the understanding of the teaching role in the classroom and integrating at the same time the reflection and intellectual work that analyze the experience of this population, taking into account the implementation of a didactic strategy, in this case the cartoon or the comic as a didactic strategy. In the instruments are interview, questionnaires, focus group, worksheets, and file diary. In the case of research paradigm, we have the hermeneutic phenomenology paradigm. In this case, this paradigm explains the nature and the essence and veracity of the phenomenon. To understand the complexity of life experiences, as I told you, for them it's so difficult to learn English as a foreign language because they don't have the basis to acquire new knowledge or new mental structures. In the ethical consideration, I have the consent form signed by the English teacher of this cycle. In the cycle for the English teacher, I had the sign, the document signed by the head teacher of this school and the coordinator or night shift. Also, I'm going to I'm not going to mention the real names of these students or the students that participate in this project to protect their identities. In the search process, I decided to do the interviews via WhatsApp to facilitate the data collection of this project. The service and the file diary was the same. Corpus construction, the data collection instruments, as I told you, I did it via WhatsApp, the majority, because it facilitated the data collection of this project to analyze more carefully this data. In the case of pedagogical intervention, we have the cartoon in the reading comprehension. I am going to apply or implement 6 worksheets. I take into account Llamosa, Gastulo, and Murieta that implemented the cartoon in the reading comprehension, not in the case of adults education, but I took some aspects at the moment that I realized or created the worksheets for that students. I tried to scaffolding these worksheets, take into account Appleby and Lange, that explains the scaffolding as a way to describe essential aspects as formally structured. The teacher is supporting, encouraging, and providing additional props. I try to use different type of activities taking into account the ages and the interest of that student. Yes, and I implement the bottom-up in the worksheets. That is an approach that, according with the English Council, the bottom-up happens when someone tries to understand language by looking at individual meaning or grammatical characteristic with some words to understand a whole text. In the case of cartoons, has a lot of images and signs to get the general idea of something or a situation, yes? And in the case of students, I put images or sounds that help them to understand the general topics of in the activities. In the case of data analysis and interpretation, I did a process to the collection of this data. First, I collection the data through interviews, surveys. In the case of interviews, I did an interview for the English teacher to understand the difficulties in English of the students of Cycle 2 or Cycle 2 graders. In the case of data reduction, I decided to do a focus group where I choose different type of students with different type of levels to come to me the experience through the pedagogical intervention. In the reading mnemonic stage, I have the file diary that I accumulate writing ideas about the concepts and the relationship to know what I observed during the pedagogical intervention with that students. Data displays, I'm going to show you some results that students shows in a self-assessment, because when I finished all the activities, they completed self-assessment, and it was a data collection instrument that helped me to know what was the performance of that students during the activities. In the case of data verification, also I interviewed an expert of andragogy to take into account different type of experiences in the part of education, adults education. In the data analysis and interpretation, this is a priori analysis. In the case of interview with an expert in andragogy, I was going to know about the characteristics in adults education, difficulties in adults education, or in the andragogy part, educational projects focused in adults. In the case of focus group, I wanted to know the difficulties in the reading comprehension of students at the moment that I applied the pedagogical intervention, intervention of comics, and level of English. Because, as I told you, they had different type of level in English, and I wanted to know what type of level of English they considered to be. In the case of interview with English teacher in Cycle 4, I wanted to know through the interview the learning process of students, or what she considers the learning process of students. Yes, the level of English of that students, in what level she considers that the students are, didactic strategy in English classes, what didactic strategies she uses in the English classes to become the English classes in a meaningful classes, yes, and interest of students. I wanted to know more about it, to get that collection triangulated, to know the influence of the cartoon or comic in the